5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Running titles. Coming through, Richard speaks first. And mix. Cue Richard.
Like the proverbial yo-yo, the New York market, up and down they went.
And cue Patrick.
I'm afraid just down for the euro, another record low at 1 point.
Running bell. Cue Richard.
These are your closing numbers. The Nasdaq off 42.
Titles, line
the Dow
windings.
Jones down 114.
Running titles. Patrick speaks first on the boxes, then Richard, and then we go Richard full screen. Cue Patrick.
Demonstrative display on the balcony. Hello, thanks for joining us, the BBC's World Business Report. I'm Patrick O'Connell in London.
Paddy, those numbers don't tell the full story.
Staying on the boxes
of
for a
what
second.
happened, because clearly the markets were much more volatile.
Coming full
and you'll
frame
have
to
euro
Richard.
numbers later.
Full frame.
Let's start in New York. The Dow Jones Industrials fell some
So standing by with a couple of
430
Astons
points
once we
at
get
the
to the
opening
markets.
bell after
Replay.
IBM warned,
We've
of
got
course,
a New York
that its sales
replay
were
next.
sluggish. After the bell here in New York, America Online has reported results
Standing
of
by with
14
Astons.
cents a share.
Yep.
Also reporting Microsoft shares. Microsoft 46 cents a share. The closing numbers.
Aston
from-
Live.
Oh, that's hardly a hit, sir. The closing numbers down 42 for the Nasdaq. The Dow
And changing
Jones
on.
Industrials off 114.
Aston's coming off, and Richard back in vision.
These were clearly serious numbers, particularly, as I say, we've just received
So there's
the
a
America
further
Online
New
and
York replay
Microsoft
next.
numbers, which the market had been waiting for. But with so much turmoil, one wonders how ordinary investors are managing to cope. Kate Noble caught up with them outside the Nasdaq.
Well, despite this
No
lovely
Astons
New
on
York
this.
weather, many investors are
And
showing the
confirming
resilience
New York
that the
that
market
Richard
showed
will come
on
back into
Wednesday.
vision at
They
the
were
end
not
of this
put off checking the
for
progress
the
of their
markets
stocks at the
prereq
Nasdaq
with
market
Barry
site
Hyman.
here on Times Square. Despite the fact that many individuals have seen
Patrick,
their
next
net
thing
worth go
for
down
you to do
significantly
will be
due to losses on
London
the stock
Euro
market in
intro,
recent
but
weeks,
that's
many
a
of
few
those
minutes
that I
away.
spoke to said that this could be a buying opportunity.
I'm not selling because I'm on a loss.
Now, why didn't you have a
But
umbrella there,
I'm thinking
Kate? You
about
look
maybe buying
bedraggled
some more.
and wet.
Might be a good buying opportunity.
There is a lot of money being poured in, so I think for now you might want to stay away, but in the future I think it'll bounce
Okay,
back
30
up.
seconds.
Eventually
Richard
we'll
coming
bull
back
market
into
like it
vision
was.
in New
There's a
York.
lot of money coming into this market. There's a lot of money all over the world. And these people got to put their money someplace. And they're going to put it in the market.
And Richard.
Kate Noble, who was absolutely sodden in Times Square, getting rained on. To give you some statistics on this, the Dow Jones Industrials, its range of 435
I've got the boxes
points,
ready
under
just in
10,000.
case there's a
That
quizzical
was
throw
the
across
lowest
to
point
Paddy for a
since
moment.
March of earlier this year. The Nasdaq Composite, the range were 231 points, but of course
Standing
it was
by with
down
Barry
80,
Hyman
187,
Aston when we
and
get to
actually
the
went
replay.
up 44 at one point. Now, what do these numbers mean? Why should we be so concerned about them? Barry Hyman joined me
Replay
from
coming
Weatherly
next from New York.
Securities.
Down
And
markets
Aston Live.
have to be expected every once in a while. It's not fun while it
Aston
lasts.
away.
but
So
it's a
Patrick
market
will
in
be
transition,
next off the back
and
of
the
this.
transition
Do you
is
want any
lower
ad lib?
valuations.
Okay,
Big cap
no ad
companies
lib,
going to dominate
no
certain
time for
sectors of
that.
the market where
So we'll
the
come to
new
camera
economy
4 for Patrick
winners that we
for
thought were
Euro
going to be are no
intro.
longer going to be the winners. And we just have to accept the fact
Okay,
that we're going to be
and
looking at the
oil
market
is
in a
being
different
dropped.
way going
Oil
forward.
price,
Companies that make
which was
profits are going to be at a
Patrick
premium to this
Reed,
market
is
when
being
we
dropped.
settle down.
So
when the market
after
started
the
trading,
Euro
down
Scott
400 points.
replay from London,
What was that?
then
That's
we'll be
fear.
crossing to New
That's,
York for
reacting to
Tigers.
something that's out there that is probably worse than the
Yes,
reality
going
of the
straight to
situation.
London, confirming
No doubt
straight
IBM's
to
earnings
Patrick on
announcements
camera
today
4.
was clearly negative on the revenue front, and that's what people look for on that particular stock. It had a big effect upon the Dow.
I'm going to give
Chase
Barry one
Manhattan,
more Aston.
Giving a very sour quarter in terms of
Aston
their earnings
away.
statement. It created a negative atmosphere in the market, broke a technical support. Sellers came in,
4.
fear
Camera
came
4,
in.
Patrick,
The
camera
market's
4.
trying to stabilize, but it still has a lot further to negotiate.
Cue Patrick.
Lot further to negotiate. That's Barry Hyman predicting the markets. Predict the euro, if you will. It hit a new
London
record
package
low
line Y
beneath
next.
84 US cents. At the New York close, it was around 83.88. In part, this was due to the rebound
Clean
that
feed
Richard
has
was talking
gone,
about
apparently.
in US stocks. Putting it all together for
Okay,
us, our economics
Kate's
reporter,
redial.
Jenny Scott.
Running Y.
Just when
So,
European
Richard, if we
Central
have
Bank President
communication
Wim
with you in
Dousenberg
some form,
must have
it's
thought
going
his
to be
week couldn't get
Tigers
any
next.
worse. A new problem. A fresh lifetime low for the euro against the dollar.
Tigers will consist
On
of...
Monday, it was an ill-judged remark from the Dutchman about intervention
Yeah,
that
you could
drove the
give
single
Scar a ring,
currency
let them
down.
know.
On Wednesday, it
So we
was a
come back to
rebound in
Richard
the
at the
US
end of
stock
this for
market.
the intro, a
At one
package
point,
replay,
renewed
and then a
enthusiasm for
1+1
dollars sent the euro sinking
with
to less than
Jessica.
84 cents. A far cry from the $1.17 it bought when it was launched in January last year.
Tigers
Wednesday's
next.
fall is the
Agreed.
latest blow in what has been a bruising few weeks for the euro. Last month, the world's major central banks were forced to buy the single currency to prop up its value, spending billions in the process.
We
For a
don't...
while, it looked
Waiting
to be
for
money well
Egon,
spent.
he's just making
The euro
a quick
steadied
decision.
and European politicians breathed a sigh of relief.
Okay,
But
oil will
Monday's
go back
suggestion from
in.
Mr. Dousenberg that further intervention may be on hold
15
undid all the
seconds,
good work. The single currency's latest fall may well force
Kate,
another
we'll
round
come
of
to Richard.
intervention.
Richard next for
It'll be
Tigers and the
expensive, but it may
package,
be
and then
the
we may
only
come
thing
back
that
to the
works.
1+1 after.
Jenny Scott,
So,
BBC
cue
News.
Richard and mix for Tigers.
Now, here's an interesting corporate
So this is going to be a
battle
replay
between
of a
two
New York
giants
package
in
next.
totally different areas. Kellogg's is suing Exxon, two large corporations that now the US Supreme Court has said can go head-to-head.
So we're hoping
in
that
the
it will be a
court,
Tigers
and
replay
it's
next
all
from New
concerning a cat, a rather large one. Why should Kellogg's, a cereal manufacturer, be suing an oil company?
And it's running, thank goodness for that. I take it that...
This is the battle of the tigers. On the one side, Exxon and its whimsical tiger.
We're just
that's been
confirming
used
there's
to
no
sell
1+1.
petrol since 1964. On the other,
There's no 1+1,
Tony
so you'll need
from
to
Kellogg's, who's been used to sell Frosted Flakes since 1952. Now Kellogg's is saying that the Exxon
Okay,
tiger
so
has infringed
Richard
its
and
trademark,
Kate,
the
could we
case will
bring
go to
Richard back
court.
into vision to start with? Then I'll come to boxes for a little bit of ad-libbery. At the end of the ad-lib, Patrick will pick up with London Markets.
For Enco, a predecessor to Exxon,
So just confirming to
giving
everyone,
consumers the phrase,
Richard
"Put a
back into
tiger in
vision.
your tank."
Incidentally, Richard, your earpiece leads were showing quite a lot last time I saw you. Don't know if there's any chance you could do something about that.
Tony from Kellogg's came along at around the same
So
time.
at the end of this
selling
replay,
cereal,
Richard comes
and has
back into
since
vision,
become
then
a
I'll go to
staple at
boxes,
breakfast.
bit of knockabout ad-lib, ending up with Patrick for camera 4 for the London Market.
For more than 30 years, the two tigers have lived happily together. Now, though, Exxon's using whimsical to advertise more than just petrol, including food and other goods, including a Tiger Mart. And that's the problem. Kellogg's says
Okay,
consumers
so
will
Richard
be
coming back into
confused.
vision, then
They'll
boxes.
think Exxon's Tiger is really Tony. Now a court will decide.
Happy motoring.
And let's see, Richard. Yeah,
Well,
marvellous.
it's a very
On
serious
boxes.
point, and as I was talking to both Kellogg's and Exxon about it, I mean, I had a smile on my face, but they certainly weren't laughing, Patrick. It's all about when your trademark moves into somebody else's area.
I wonder as well, I mean, I have to say,
Full
looking
frame
at it,
Patrick.
I had a smile. I don't know the ins and outs as
Coming
as
back
you
to
were explaining
boxes.
them, but I wonder
On
if that tells
boxes.
you the efficient nature of that branding, of that marketing. If you find that tiger sort of amusing,
Coming to Richard next.
it's working for the company in the one ad, it's working
How
for
long
the
do you
company
want
in
on
the
this
other
ad?
ad. You can be cynical
We've got a
about it,
minute to
but they have
fill,
got
1
something
minute on the
they
ad
should
libbery.
hold on to by the tail.
Full
Well,
frame on Richard.
That is the point, the whole idea of the tiger being robust, aggressive, which is why I'd like to have your thoughts, well, not yours, Patrick, I mean, our
On
good
boxes.
viewer, who kindly joined us.
Back to Richard.
We'd like to know your views on this. Do you think companies make too much of branding? Do you really care whether it's a lion or a tiger, a mouse or a fox? Is branding important? Very seems to be in this era of globalization.
About 30
And when you
seconds
have
to
got big
fill.
companies like Kellogg's, like
Coming back to
Exxon
boxes just to
fighting
see
it out in
Patrick's
court,
reaction.
important.
on boxes.
Well, I mean, I'm amazed to hear you ask the question. You'd never ask Disney if a mouse was important to branding, would you, Richard? And so you get my views, whether you like them or not. Now, time to turn to the
4,
European
Patrick.
stock markets, where the figures are what's
Going
speak for
live on the
themselves
figures.
Right now, mirroring
1 minute 10 left on
the
programme.
falls in New York. Take, for example, the FTSE, which you can clearly see is down 55.
And you'll be using
at,
camera 3 next,
61.48.
Patrick.
But at
Patrick
one
will lead
point
us
it
into
was
the
down
email address.
60-20. And the rebound in the London market was
just having a
witnessed in
look.
others. But the impact
And then
of the
after the email
IBM
address, I'll come to
sales
boxes
warning
and Richard
has
can
been
start with the
large.
coming
Take,
up.
for example, Nokia.
45 left on this half of
but
programme.
In 1 month, it's lost 30% of its value.
40 left on
and
this
it was
half.
down again. So was Ericsson, so was Alcatel. Investors wondering
35.
where is the right value for these stocks. Remember, they came up very far, they came up very fast.
30.
They were judged expensive. Now they're being punished because a big US firm
25.
is in
Coming
trouble.
back to camera
So it
3.
seems
23.
that's
22.
how the
Camera
cycle
3, Patrick.
continues.
20.
Our emails on
19.
all topics, branding
18.
and more, to this
17.
address,
16.
at BBC
15. Coming to boxes. Richard speaks first.
UK.
13. Cue Richard.
Coming up,
10.
markets fall,
9.
who buy a
$8.
$250,000
7.
car.
And the
6,
row between Indian
5,
celebrities
4,
and judges.
3, 2, 1. Out on time.
2, 1.
Paddy, do you need some water or something? Paddy?
Why?
Egon's
A
concerned.
little hot and bothered.
Hot.
In what way?
No, we don't. We haven't got time.
Right, the good news is when we come back off the break, which is in just over 2.25 minutes' time, we'll come through to New York, so we'll get a chance to see New York's wide shot, possibly. And it's the Bentley intro that Richard leads us through into the Bentley prereq, which is a New York replay.
It's the guy on the show.
Yeah.
Can we go in now, Richard?
Yes, yes, guests can go in.
Go in now. Thank you.
Yeah. 1 minute 10 left till our return.
Thanks, Ebs.
Hello again. We met about
50 seconds until our return.
Yeah.
Confirming it's New York all the way through. Initial part.
I was. Vincent, if you just touch the wire around your under your jacket.
30 seconds till our return.
Vincent, we need to talk the level. So, how long ago did you arrive?
20 seconds to our return.
Cutting it quite good.
So counting back to us.
And,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Title rolling. Coming through to Richard and Q.
1.
You're very welcome. It's the BBC's World Business Report. Patrick O'Connell is in London. I'm Richard Quest in New York. Going to start by updating you on the market news. Of course, the stock market at one stage down 435 points for the Dow Jones. After the bell in New York, America Online and Microsoft, two huge bellwethers for the new economy, reported results. Microsoft reporting earnings of 46
So we'll be doing a
cents
New York
share. That's
replay
better
next.
than expected. 41 cents a share was the consensus estimate on revenues of 5.8 billion. And America Online, where there's been an enormous amount of concern about the ability of AOL to continue its advertising strength, AOL reporting 14 cents a share. That's the important barometer that people look at. Expected was 13 cents. Now, with the markets in turmoil, this is hardly the time, you might imagine, to want to be buying a very expensive car like a $250,000 Bentley. So why has Rolls-Royce and Bentley decided to open a showroom here in Manhattan? The CEO of Bentley and Rolls-Royce in the United States says he is concerned about the market's fall. Ken Noble reports.
Alistair Stewart is preparing
Okay, standing by with an Alistair Stewart Aston. We'll see Richard in InVision at the back end of this for a back anno. So I think we'll have boxes available for Patrick to pick up. Patrick will work to camera 3 for Philippines OOV, Indonesia loan OOV, Indonesia pre-rec.
This is an economy that is doing extremely well.
That's the Aston.
So there is a feeling of prosperity, and I know that fluctuates with markets backwards and forwards on a daily basis. But the underlying strength of the economy is a factor.
Picking up on the strength of the economy.
Okay, so a fair bit of London coming up after Richard's back anno on this. Philippines OOV, Indonesia loan OOV, Indonesia pre-rec Patrick, which is a 54-second replay. Nigeria OOV, and then the Nigeria 1+1.
Yes, of course, and we keep a careful watch on that. One thing I would say about our customer base is that generally they are wisely invested. Their wealth is relatively deep. That doesn't mean to say that they are not affected by the fluctuation in the markets. Of course they are, but generally not to an extent that says that they postpone instantly all their luxury purchases. They generally have a depth of wealth, which
taking his
is
$250,000 a year, yes, hard job
across a number of areas. But it's something we watch, and what we watch
1 minute left on this replay, confirming that Richard will come back into vision.
And if we feel that the market is softening,
and then Patrick will pick up camera 3.
Supply so that we don't flood the market beyond its capabilities.
Like most luxury goods, they have a special selling technique. In this room, you get to pick your bits and pieces. The idea is personal service.
It's a tough job, but somebody had to do it, Kate.
It's a challenge to give that one-on-one feel.
This is such a big country. Bentley is largely unknown, and we have a big challenge to get Bentley understood for its power and its performance message and the style that it offers in the marketplace. These are things that are often not understood here. We don't have large marketing funds and advertising funds to be able to get that message out. We are a very small company.
Yes, because Richard's coming into vision. I've got boxes available, Patrick.
Total around the world. So that is a big message to get across in a country like this, where it's such a large geographic area.
And Richard.
That's Kate Noble. And if you were with us earlier in the programme, Patrick, you would have noticed Kate was in the warmth inside the Bentley showroom there.
Yes.
Well,
as opposed to being looking like a drowned rat out in Times Square.
The whole environment reeked of wealth in the Bentley showroom. Now, I was always under the impression that the rising stock market led to the wealth effect in the US economy. Alan Greenspan always questioned how great it was. Does it mean that a wobbling stock market puts people like Mr. Bentley in problems if it makes consumers nervous about forking out large amounts of money?
Full frame, Richard.
He would say, and indeed he just did, that they're so diversified, it doesn't matter. I take that with a pinch of salt.
Going back to boxes for the handbag. Patrick continues on camera 3.
But certainly Jaguar, Cadillac, that Mercedes, that second tier of car, must be very worried by these falls in the stock market.
Not a second tier of car to all of us, Richard. But anyway, more news from around the world. The Philippine peso fell again. This time, news of the impeachment proceedings against President Estrada, and a government report that imports and manufacturing are in decline. The currency went to around 48.6 to the dollar. Last week, the central bank raised rates 4% with little effect.
To camera 3 for Indonesia
the IMF saying that economic growth in the Philippines will reach the target of 4 to 5% this year. But the widening budget deficit means that Manila has not qualified for the last instalment of its 3-year lending program from the IMF.
Back in vision on 3.
Indonesia has got what it asked for from the international community, up to $5 billion in loans, but there are strings attached, largely on the understanding that it does more to disarm militias and secure peace in East Timor. A meeting in Tokyo of the consultative
Coming
group on
back to
Indonesia
Camera 3
has approved
very
the loans
briefly
to be spent
for a
mostly
few words
on
leading into a
improving
London
health and
package
education
on Line
facilities,
Y.
helping Indonesia solve the problem of the country's $6 billion budget deficit.
Back in vision.
Richard Galpin, the BBC's correspondent, explains the importance of this new money.
Running Y.
Primarily, it's important
on this for 50 seconds, continuing in London for Nigeria UV and then the Nigeria 1+1. Richard, is it likely you may jump in on this 1+1? Okay, thank you. So it's London all the way.
The Indonesian government put a lot of time and effort into
6 minutes left on programme.
Meeting to ensure it did get all the money it requested. In theory, most of the money has been pledged to deal with the budget deficit, which is expected to be around next year's in 2001 about $6 billion. But it's interesting already the senior economics minister
Patrick, I'll start you on camera 3, and at the end of the UV could you turn to camera 4,
the money are
please.
loans and therefore increase the debt burden on Indonesia. And it may be that the budget deficit is not as bad as the Indonesian government's predicting at the moment, particularly if oil prices remain high, given the fact that Indonesia is a major oil producer.
And 3.
Lagos, the financial heart of Nigeria, has, as you've been hearing, been brought to a standstill by 3 days of serious ethnic violence. On top of the appalling loss of life, there's been widespread economic disruptions.
Patrick turns to camera 4 next.
Forced to close, employees too frightened to go to work, and this all comes at a time when the government says it wants to improve investor confidence in the country.
On 4.
Dr. Vincent Magombe is a specialist in African economic affairs. Thank you for joining us. Is it right to portray this as ethnic violence, by and large?
Well, many people want to say it's ethnic, but at the root of it, at the heart of it, is very much economic, really.
I mean, but is it the case that one group is suffering more than another group, and guess what? They tend to be from one ethnic group, the ones who suffer the most.
Well, that's true, but what then is most important is to notice that those differences are very much to do with the ethnic, economic disempowerment of one group.
So we've got more London at the end of this, which is the India Dam Woolwich.
People who are going to work are being attacked. Is that what you've been hearing?
Well, what's happening is that groups of youth, many of them who are unemployed, and basically, again, because of former governments not addressing unemployment problems, including the current government as well, many youths who are there doing nothing have been attacking people trying to go and do their business in town. And so I think that one has got to look at the root causes of the problem, which are very much economic, unemployment, and lack of addressing of those issues.
Is the outside world now coming to look at the problems
30
of Nigeria
seconds left
very
on
much
this interview.
differently from the time when the army had the iron grip? Is this, in a way, an example of how, when times change, you then move to the next tier of problems from the country, from dictatorship, if you like, to the ones raised by more democratic ways of running a country?
Well,
making this last answer, please. Last answer. Patrick works to camera 4 next for the read into India Dam.
Dictatorship and repression. When they get some freedom, sometimes they don't know what to use that freedom, and this is a classic example that's happening in Nigeria.
Do you think this would lead
to close this,
war,
Paddy?
or is it going to be contained?
It could, because Nigeria has had a lot of wars in the past based on
India Dam
ethnic
is 208.
lines. And I think one hopes that the government will have to take a grip
Need to shorten the queue into India as much as possible.
Dr. Magombe, thank you very much indeed for joining us. In India, the Supreme Court has ruled that construction on the controversial Narmada Dam project can continue. And, this report might...
What happened now? Sarah largest whole series of dams planned for the Narmada River. In recent years, it's become the focus for many of the issues of the
we can take
those who want to see this huge dam project completed on the Narmada say that it will provide large amounts of water and electricity.
We will have approximately 29 seconds after this package.
We're going to try and get an early out.
Gujarat's irrigation minister was at the Supreme Court to hear today's judgment. After all the delays in construction forced by the protests, a relieved man.
Undertake the task. Undertake the task at 1:20.
1:20 is the early out. Outwards, undertake the task.
And tomorrow we shall be able to start the construction and go up to the height of
So about 30 seconds now. So that will be 1 minute
in a
10
majority ruling said work could start immediately on raising the dam from its present height of 88 metres to 90 metres, as it was satisfied with the relief and rehabilitation measures undertaken by the authorities. But the court said that raising the dam beyond this to its maximum envisaged height of 138 metres would require clearance from an environmental authority appointed to undertake the task.
Mike will just support that. Richard, to the subject of emails and also being upgraded, a few days ago we were confused about the point at which shares settled in London. And Keith Sargent, who enjoys the programme, says shame on you both.
1 minute left on programme.
Have you two never traded shares?
Cutting full frames, Richard.
Tongue in cheek, but I guess it's the point. It's
back on
settlement
boxes.
plus 5 days in London, he says.
Now you see, I mentioned this, didn't I? T plus 5.
T plus 5. Well,
45 left on programme.
Yeah,
well, that's one of the problems I've always had with the London market. It's T plus 5 as opposed to T plus 3 here in the United States.
Longer settlement time. Well, he hasn't gone into that. I mean, just to relaying, of course, his anger about what he's saying about the fact that we didn't say it clearly enough. Stephen Concessio posed a really interesting question, wanting us to make a comparison about electricity and oil as different energy sources, and that'll have to wait for another day.